So we are recording. So, right, good. Well, good to have you all here. So obviously this is our book of the month, Never Split the Difference. So we're just taking Paul's, sort of listened to it and downloaded the video. Andy, Bruce, so you managed to get through the book?
Yes. I listened to the audio book, and then I've got the hard copy as well. Thank you. So had a look through that.
For the hard copy as well.
Yeah. I think it's one of those that the audio is good, but you do need to go through the hard copy, and there's so much detail in it.
Yeah, I read the book. Well, I got as far as just about to start chapter 9, so not quite to the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's the majority. So I've done a little bit on each chapter, and we'll just go through a chapter at a time and see what we got out of it. So obviously this is for those that are new to book club. It's really about personal development. A chance to sort of talk about what we've learnt from the books, insights, putting it into practice as well, what comes out of it. And building that sort of community as well. So in light of what's going on in the world, it's a little bit of I suppose light relief, but actually I think this book is quite useful. I think Paul, you were saying about I had David, and he might be joining us in a bit, but he's trying to negotiate a reduction in the rent. So
in the rent, okay.
Yeah. So you can use what's in here to actually help with that those discussions as well. Cool. So this is our book. So a little bit of background about Chris Voss. If you watch his videos, he's got quite an interesting background. There's a quite good prelogue to him there. About his FBI negotiation. Sort of time, if you are going to negotiate with people's lives is probably one of the toughest ones to do. So I think he's in a fairly good place to actually, to be teaching it as well. And I think what I like was when he went for his first job, they turned him down and said, "You've got to go away and get some experience first." And he sort of said, "Well, where do I get experience of hostage negotiation apart from with a hostage negotiation?"
His mum, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it just shows if it goes back to be, do, have. If that's what you want to have. Who do I need to be? What do I need to do? So, which is what he did. So this was just a little thing with the sort of the key areas, of each chapter, and I think that's what I pulled that out really and.
Thank you.
Took my own version of that, so because that was a bit small, but I do have that picture if anybody wants that to go through. So, chapter 1 then, active listening. Really about sort of a lot of this was about old school motivation and looking into how we sort of build that trust with people. What's any sort of thoughts from you guys that came out of that?
Can I say something completely technically? Am I picking up a radio somewhere in the background or not? Is anybody else hearing some other noises, like a radio noise or something? No?
I can't hear anything. I can put mine on mute if you like. Do that.
You still hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Let me put mine on mute.
Yes, it was yours, Andy.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
It might be fan noise from my laptop.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, sure. That's fine.
I can't hear. It must be because you've got a headphone on or something.
I think it's quite sensitive. Yeah.
Cool. So, what were your thoughts on this sort of first part then, active listening?
But that's the most. If I can maybe start. it's the simplest almost and the most effective concession we can make, isn't it? And that's the first thing that shows we can demonstrate empathy and almost in an open and honest way show that we want to better understand what others are experiencing. That would be my takeaway from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there were some good examples of where, he showed that active listening can be really beneficial in terms of, gaining trust. And, there was the example of the lady who was trying to raise money for the Girl Scouts, was it, or something like that? But just by building that relationship to the point where, she just trusted that the money was going to be spent in the right way was all that it took.
Yeah. Yeah, Bruce, anything to add to that?
Nothing really to add, no.
So, no, I think it's that, that's why I picked out, I don't think this slide was in his book, but, picking out that balance of empathy, respect, and trust, finding the three things together. And, you've got to get to know the people to do that. I think he's got that bit about the smartest dumb guy in the room. So, and you act sort of dumb, then you're more likely to ask better questions. And, don't go in there telling people, go in there to understand. It was always do you remember Columbo?
Yeah.
Old enough to remember Columbo? And, he always acted as the dumb guy, didn't really understand what was going on. And then he'd sort of walk out of the room and just one last thing before I go, and then he'd ask a question. So I thought it was very much in line with that, of building that relationship. So yeah, and I think that he goes into heart versus mind. You're trying to get into the emotion of the decision rather than that sort of the logical side of things. Yeah. So, any sort of thoughts on things that you've done in the past, or, I mean, are you guys good at this? The active listening side of things.
I'd like to think I'm reasonable at it. I'm sure I could improve, but yeah.
I find it's often a difficult thing when you've got lots of things on your mind. Certainly now, with you've got a million and one things. You might be in a meeting, you might be somewhere else, but are you really present with it? So I think one of the key things is, be self-awareness. I think all of these things, empathy, respect, trust, comes from a position of self-awareness. The more aware you can be of where your head is at, what you're thinking at any one time, then you can catch yourself either doing it, hopefully, or not doing it. And I certainly find, often it can be a case of not doing it is when I notice it. When I'm doing it, I don't notice it because it's automatic. So it then goes on to chapter 2, then into about life being this mirror and using the tonality. So negotiation is a battle act of discovery. So we're on a journey here, not necessarily deciding what the outcome is. We're working towards it. So did you like his sort of three voices? And where to use these voices?
The three voice, the DJ, what was it, the night DJ voice, wasn't it? The sort of calm and slow, and then there was this playful positive. I still can't do this one very well. And then the third one was like a teacher voice, wasn't it? Like a direct, assertive one.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be interesting, to know whether each of us does that subconsciously, or whether we default into one particular one when in danger, for example, or in a situation that we are not sure about.
I think your mic is making a bit of a noise there, Paul. I don't know. Done something different there.
From me?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Whether you moved the computer or something that was just.
Okay. I'm really sorry.
So
Is it better now?
that's better now. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's cool. I mean, are you aware of your different voices?
I think I am. Specifically when I'm teaching.
Yeah.
You almost get into a different mode when you're imparting knowledge. But then when I record myself sometimes, when I'm in the zone, I sort of go back to more natural voice.
Yeah.
So it starts like a more commanding, if you commanding, if you like. But I think when then softens, I think that's really when you can impart knowledge.
Cool.
It's where it comes from, the bottom of the heart.
Yeah, I think we did this in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, when I was sort of training on that, and it's about mirroring. So part of hypnosis is a mirroring exercise, and you can get into rapport very quickly with somebody. So, and it's amazing when you watch two people talk from a distance, you can start to observe these conversations. When they do get into that connection, it's amazing how naturally you do just mirror somebody, not only from the tone, but from, the pace, of communication to the body language, and all of those things can be used if, again, you're aware of what's actually going on. So I think we do this naturally. We're just not aware of it, and often we're thinking about something else rather than what we're actually trying to deal with. So when you try and do it, it's quite difficult. If it's sort of like the first time you've done it, or it's a slightly different situation. Do you guys? I mean, you've got reasonably bigger teams. Do you find that you do that when you've got different people in the room, different people with different paces in the way they talk?
I think to an extent, yeah. I guess where it becomes more interesting, I think, like you say, you naturally tend to just mirror somebody else's, tonality and so on. But by being more conscious of it, it means that actually you might not want to always mirror them. If it's a negotiation situation and they're starting to be quite direct and assertive, then you might actually want to say, okay, well, let's not just be assertive back. Let's actually switch to a different tone and try and move the conversation.
So play, not always, if they want you to, the energy's high, if you go into high state energy with them, then you've got to understand where that's likely to take the conversation. If you can challenge that with that late night DJ voice and bring them down to your pace, then you're back in control of the conversation. I think that is a key thing, is understanding which way to go. It's also interesting with emails, because I mean, we sort of come back to a lot of communication. 55% is body language, then about 25 tonality, and about 7% is the words we use. So when we're doing email, we're trying to cram all of that just into an email. So if somebody responds in a direct, assertive voice, you know, what's your natural tendency to reply to that email?
Mm. And it's also when we read emails from someone that we know quite well, and then we know what vocabulary and what words they're using, we can almost, when we read those emails, we can almost hear them.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you get that sometimes, but when you receive an email from someone that you know quite well, you could almost hear the voice as you're reading their email.
Yeah, which often gets you into trouble, yeah. Just comes from the other half. So yeah, sometimes we read more into it, and it can depend on our mood as well. If we're in that negative mood and we get an email, then we'll put on our feelings onto that email, onto those words, which is why it's such a, you know, potentially a dangerous way to communicate. So I think, you know, its tonality was, you know, get that pace, that steady, calm pace, because that brings people, you know, in the hostage negotiation, generally, I think heartbeats and energy levels rise. And therefore, what you're trying to do is bring that down, you know, into a calm. Because the other thing is, you know, once that pace goes up, the heartbeat goes up, more blood is pumping. There's a danger we go into reptilian brain function, you know, and then, you know, we're talking to the, you know, go to Steve Peters' book, you know, you go into the chimp brain, and you're just dealing with, you know, animal instincts, rather than what we're trying to do is keep the blood down, keep it rational, keep it calm, so we can talk to the human brain, that neocortex. So any other thoughts on the tonality side of things?
Sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't hear me. I was saying practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
So I mean, when I started recording myself, especially before teaching sessions, that's when I started noticing the things I say unnecessarily, perhaps, or things I say in a funny way. Something I never gave much thought, to be fair, and it's when you start to realize that, you know, these things are happening. Yeah.
Just every time you move your computer, I think it makes a noise, Paul. I don't know.
Oh.
When it's still, it's fine.
Okay, fine. I'll try not to. Is it making noise now?
Yeah, it was.
Oh, okay.
So you got it balanced on your knee or something?
Indeed.
Yeah. So, and that sort of, you know, I think mirrors, you know, repeat the last three words, you know, find the critical 1 to 3 words. I don't know if I've got that. Yeah. Last 3 words. You know, we often hear things you know, from what people say, and then we paraphrase it. But if you actually, whatever they say, if you can put those words directly back to them, then you're going to get a much deeper level of empathy on that basis. You know, finishing people's sentences, you know, doesn't actually help in these situations. You want to let them, you know, even if they're stumbling, let them finish, and then you can just sort of, you know, so what I'm hearing is boom, 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 but use their words. Okay, don't. But, you know, and don't change it a little bit. You know, if they've used a specific word, don't think of a better word that you would use. Use their words. I think that's key, and that does take a lot of practice. You know, that's you know, I remember doing that in NLP, and it was very difficult to, you know, to really remember word for word what they'd actually said, and then be able to repeat it to them. That's why when I'm in sales meetings, I tend to take notes as I go, because, you know, if I take notes, then it's easier to actually deal with that.
I know he was saying something about the use of silence. I can't quite remember what he was referring to, but I know that this, the process that he was describing was, I think, a five-stage process, and one of the bits on there was to use silence effectively. I don't know if anybody else picked up on this. I can't remember what precisely he meant.
So, yeah, I think often you'll use silence to try and get more from the other party. I think that's what I remember, and certainly use that from time to time.
Thank you.
We just use silence there. See what happens when you pause. Everyone there, I'm assuming it wasn't just me, felt like they should say something. And because you sort of almost, no one's saying that perhaps I should say something. So if you're a natural talker, the danger is you end with that space, allow them to process the information and then okay, this profile to get people with thoughts.
Oh, I can see. I can see. I can see Andy, the other behind you, Bruce.
Sorry?
I can see Andy right behind you.
Yeah, he's
Brilliant.
talking to a colleague. I can't quite hear him, so I've got noise cancelling headsets.
Yeah.
Trying to work out how important it was.
We'll tell you if we need to put you on mute. Yeah. So he thinks he's gone out of his room, but he's on your mute.
Yeah.
So I think Dave's just joined us. So Dave, obviously you haven't read the book yet, but we'll have to open it and just. So, chapter 3. So don't feel their pain, label it.
That's my dog in the background. That's Lily. Oh. Yes. There's obviously something happening outside. Let me just mute myself.
You've got Andy in the background. You've got your bloody dog.
She's a big bitch back here.
Sort of having the silence. So yeah. So this labelling is again goes back to those 3 words. Using their language. But if they've got pain, we've got to sort of give a name to it. So were there any examples that stood out for you in his chapter? No. Have a quick look and see if anything stands out. I think this was the Girl Scout one. I think was it you mentioned too, or Andy.
Leave for a moment, just 1 second.
What about you, Bruce? What did you get out from this one?
I don't know. Yeah, so it's really showing your understanding of the other person's situation, and I think it's sort of partly used in communications where you can have communications with somebody where you're trying to extract. You don't want to lead the conversation. You want to try to get all the information from them. So we talked about mirroring, and we've talked about the labeling. You're showing that you're listening. And it's taking the conversation along.
So if you were looking at this in, let's say, I mean, I know you guys, when Dave was talking about it earlier, was about getting our rents reduced, getting a rent holiday. So let's put it in a context. We're negotiating with that. So how would you sort of see this coming into that sort of negotiation?
Perhaps seeing it from the landlord point of view as well. Is that what we mean here? Is seeing the other side?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're negotiating when the landlords.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to see their pain. So we've said, look, we don't want to pay rent for 3 months. Yeah. And they're going to come up with some form of objection to that, aren't they?
Mm.
So what we need to do is, if they say, oh, no, can't do that, we label their pain. Say, okay, so it seems like, looks like, sounds like, whichever one is most appropriate. Yeah. So it sounds like, you don't want to reduce the rent because of, and then repeat back what he said.
Yeah.
Okay, so we use it. This one is used quite a bit in sales techniques. Because people will say, about like price. People are arguing about the price. We want to find out what the real objection is. And if you label it, and it seems like, let's say it was price. It seems like you don't have enough money to buy this product right now. They'll either say, yes, I don't have enough money, or no, that's not the reason. I've got the money.
Mm.
Okay, so if you've got the money, well, what is it then? Because you might be saying it's price. That sounds like you don't have enough money. I know I've got the money. It's just I don't see the value, or there's something else there that's going to come out. So when we get an objection, then we've got to, in effect, challenge the objection, label it, and then we can deal with it. So in the girl with the Girl Scout, where she got the person that was stuck, she said, I'm sensing some hesitation with these projects. And then the woman exclaimed, I want my gift to directly support programs for Girl Scouts, not anything else. Great, now I know your objection, now I can deal with it.
Mm.
With the element of digging deep, using this to label it, because they'll then tell you whether that's the right thing or there's something else there.
Mm.
I think that fits well with the sort of the get to know angle as well, because you can put something across in a way that will make people say, well, no, that's not it, and sometimes that can be quite advantageous. I mean, as you said, it can be useful from a drawing out information perspective, but it can also be useful from a steering the conversation perspective as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what did you take of the example of the flight on page 6970?
What about computing?
I guess that's it's all about building rapport, isn't it? And getting somebody who wouldn't necessarily want to go to the trouble of helping you out, getting them on side, and Yeah.
Yeah. You know, so it's really, you know, and I think the key to this is active listening. You know, too many people, you know, they come very much from their point of view. What I want is this. I want this. I want this. Whereas this is sort of saying, well, actually, you put yourself in the person you're negotiating with shoes. Find that empathy. Yeah. Find out what the challenge is, and then you're almost sort of steering them towards where you want to go without them really knowing it. So, so I thought, yeah, the one about the flight, you know, was that was quite good. You know, just getting into that rapport. Did anyone of you see the? He's got a couple of case studies on YouTube where people have used his techniques to get deals done. And there was one guy that was buying a car, and he was using this, and he just talks through how at every stage he went through, and he ended up with a blinding deal on the car. And at the end, I think he either went back, or at the end he said, you know, did I leave anything on the table? Was there anything else? He said, no, you took absolutely every ounce of bit, you know, discount that we could give you.
It's funny. I bought a car having just read. Well, in fact, I was not quite finished, but I'd read most of the book, and I went out to buy a car. And in the end, it actually just came down to I found a good price online, and I said, look, I can get it for this, and they went, all right. Yeah, he had to go off and talk to his manager and all that, this, that, and the other, and I think it was, you know, ultimately a pretty good deal. But yeah, just the logic of saying that I found it cheaper elsewhere.
Yeah. So you should have given him the book then.
Yes.
I think now you read the book, and now you won't have to give so much profit on it. Cool. So, chapter 4.
Oh, don't be a panic boy.
Your place, Bruce.
Sorry?
So beware of a yes, master the no. This is quite interesting. What were your thoughts on the no side of things?
I think a natural reaction to no, and I'm probably talking from my perspective, but also from things that I've observed. A lot of people, when they hear no, they're almost immediately on the defensive. Not everybody, but quite a large number of people is. And here is almost seeing no as the opportunity to seek clarity. And I think you know, the seeing the, and I think again it goes throughout the book, throughout every single chapter. It appears to be a almost like a crash course in emotional intelligence. So it's almost like a summarized Goldman and, you know, all those others, you know, minds that you know, that talk about emotional intelligence, and it's very succinct, which is very good, and it shows positivity again. So bringing positivity out of no, I think it's again in this chapter very, very clear.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think no is that's when the conversation stops, and I liked his sort of the heading of that sort of chapter. You know, no start negotiation. You know where you're actually starting from there. But too many people go, oh, I got the no, and then they run away from it. So it's working on how you turn that around, I think, is the key to this. And I definitely believe that no's are definite. You know, if somebody says no, they generally do mean no. Whereas a yes, a lot of people I find more, certainly in a sales thing, say yes, but actually they just use yes to fob you off. Where, when we did telemarketing, you're phoning up a number of people. You find somebody who says, oh yeah, okay, fine, yeah, call me back tomorrow, or yeah, I'll come along, and then they just don't turn up. There's no buy into that yes. If they say no, you can be pretty sure no, they're not going to do it.
Was it him that was giving that example of getting a discount card, or am I mixing it up with something else? That someone was taught into buying a discount card by a beautiful 20-something sales assistant knocking on the door. Was it in this book, or did I read it elsewhere? It's exactly on that point.
Probably happened to you, Paul.
It hasn't. It hasn't yet.
It happened to me.
I remember this distinctly, hearing or reading it. It was literally this 20-something-year-old knocking on the door as a sales assistant. It wasn't in this book, was it? No.
I don't recall in this book.
No, fine. So knocking on the door and asking about simple questions like, do you often eat out? Starting with that sort of thing, or you look like a person that enjoys fine dining. So there's this young, beautiful girl asking the 40 or 50 something guy in that door, and as that conversation progressed, he was literally getting himself into then buying whatever she was offering, because in the end she was offering a discount card to all those restaurants that he said he was going to, all those theaters and all those fabulous things that he thought he was going to impress her with.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I mean, I came across it quite a while ago. Was in a sales conversation, negotiation, if you get someone to say yes 7 times, then they're more likely to
7
times, then they're more likely to buy on the 8th time. So that's what that training was about. Was I see you like food, yes. I see you like sunny weather, yes. I see you like drinking, yes. You do that 7 times. Or you'd like this discount card then that gives you money off restaurants in sunny places. But it always seemed, when I was sort of taught it or learned it, it seemed a bit false and a bit manipulative. And when it's been done on me on calls, it's basically just ask a stupid question that gets a yes. Yeah. Because you can't.
I think you're absolutely right. It comes down to ethics, and because you're a qualified accountant, I think your values and your ethics are very high. Whereas with respect, a lot of salespeople may not necessarily have gone through that training or belong to professional associations, which meant that that they were almost complying by default with high standards.
Yeah, and I think if you're dealing with the gullible, then that probably works. But in most of my negotiations and in business world, you're not dealing with gullible people. You're dealing with extremely intelligent people.
That's right.
You sniff this out at an early stage, and so therefore going this no route, I just felt that made a lot more sense to me. Because if you're given a chance to say no, then you're in control. You're in conversation. Therefore, if you feel in control, you're going to relax.
Is now a bad time to talk? Yeah. Absolutely.
You're not in control, then you start to clam up, and you're not building that trust or empathy. Oh yeah, it was on page similar to that was page 89.
89.
Yeah, page 89. So I speak to Mr. Smith? Yes. Is he calling? Do you believe gas prices are going too high? Yes. Do you believe that Democrats are part of the problem? Yes. Do you need to change in November? Yes. The credit cards will be part of that change. What? Whereas he changed it then to, no, I'm not going to do anything. Want to do anything. So you're going to get far more commitment if you go down the no approach than the yes approach. And I think it's that fear of no that most people have, whereas actually, if you're trained in this, if you get the no, then you can deal with it. Any other points from that?
One thing I notice is when we get those persistent sales calls, I don't know if you guys are noticing it as well, they almost follow the opposite, because they start by asking how we feeling, knowing that as a nation we will respond well. So we're not very well, we're not going to suddenly talk about, aches and pains. Well, we might now, but, in those exceptional circumstances. But usually when someone asks us, how you feel, how are you, on the phone, we'll say fine.
Yeah.
And that almost puts, we are putting almost a frame on ourselves, or they framing us in that positive response. So they're using that technique, but the other way around almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, that does. Yeah, we do have that natural to not want to say no, because, as you said, yes can be counterfeit. I can say yes and I can actually mean no. How's business? Or is business good? Yes, business is good. No, it's not. It's pretty shit, really. But I'm not going to tell you that.
But when you hear, the business meetings, people bragging about this and that, and then we all very, very similar as humans. Yeah, absolutely.
But the one line, in the page 95, his summary was, and I have used this a few times now, is, have you given up on this project? So where my sales pipeline has gone cold and people are not responding, just to write them back, have you given up on the project? Have you given up on the idea of, growing your business? That has worked really well, because in their mind they've sort of got to say, if they haven't given up on it, they've got to say no. I haven't given up on it. I'm just busy with other things at the moment, and you've started back the conversation. There is a natural feeling. Whereas if you do it on a yes basis, it can be more difficult. And I've always used, the have I got you at a bad time? Or I do tend to sort of say, have I got you a good time? Which gets a yes answer, or as does allow them to say no. Have I got you a good time? No, you haven't really. That's fine. Is it okay if I call you back? When would be a good time to call you? And the conversation still goes. So I do, part of as a potential sales call. So, any other examples on that for you guys? Those two phrases.
Yeah. May not see tomorrow.
Okay. Cool. Okay. So, 5 triggers. How do we get that's right? I've been trying this one for the last, since I've read this, and God, it's bloody difficult. I think where's my I keep getting yes, you're right. I've been trying to count up the number of times I've got yes, you're right against that yes, that's right, and I tend to get more yes, you're right more than I do that's right. So it's interesting because it does make me then think, oh, okay, are you just saying that because, you know, you're just capitulating with what I've said, or do you actually buy into what we've just been talking about? What would you say the difference is for you guys? Andy, you're unmuted at the moment, but what do you think on that one?
You're right. I would agree with what you said. I think it's interesting though that it comes down to a turn of phrase, and some people may never say that's right just because that's not a thing they say. But I guess having that awareness as to the distinction means that you can then probe in order to determine for yourself whether you're looking at a that's right or a you're right, and make that judgment even if they don't say those exact words.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right there. No, I think that is right. It's and it's strange when you say it yourself. You know, if you try a few things and say yes, that's right, and you're right. Mentally, there is a different set of neural connections happening when you actually say it. It's quite odd, you know, when you're aware of it. You know, you're right is there. What he did put a really good example on it, and I was trying to. Everyone knows where it is.
It was the guy in the, what was it, American football team? I can't remember where it was in the book, but
Yeah.
that's what it was.
Somewhere, isn't it?
I'm on this. Was it Sabaya? Was it? No. A good summary of the combination of re-articulating the meaning of what is said, plus the acknowledgement of the emotions underlying that meaning. So paraphrasing plus labeling equals summary. Is that what we mean here? No.
Is that at the end? Yeah,
Probably not yet.
That's page 106, I think, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
106, where he's trying to get the guy to do something.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Is great, but if you're right, nothing changes.
Yeah.
Interesting. I missed it completely. You see, I think it's one of the disadvantages actually of listening to the book, because when I've got it on audiobook, it could have been a momentarily lapse of concentration or something, you know, and you miss you know, half a page or a couple of lines that are quite crucial.
Yeah, that's right.
And when you're actually reading it, it's you're following it line by line.
Yeah. You can go back and reread. I do find that's, you know, it's good for getting volume.
That's right.
But not always.
You're right.
So, yeah. So both his and his coach kept trying to explain to him, and every time we got the worst possible answer. You're right. So he's agreeing. It's almost like you're right. It's over there. And yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. But I'm not taking ownership of it. I'm not actually doing it myself. Whereas once he said that's right, now I've got ownership of it. There's a very, very subtle difference, which, you know, I wasn't really aware of before, but I can really see. So where are we get to? Yeah. Yeah, I think those are the main. I think just that slight definition. That's right. Right. Was really, that was the main thing for me from that chapter. Any others? Any other points? No. Cool. Good. chapter 6, bend their reality. So we start getting to the good stuff now. I thought, got more into the the hostage negotiation side of things. So take this back a little bit to let's go back to the rent negotiation. So I think it's sometimes good to put into whatever, you know, if there's a negotiation on your mind, you know, be the car one, Andy, or, you know, in mine I've got the rent negotiation to come on board. But if you think of something to build this around, I think that does help. So if we're looking at a rent negotiation, how would you say that, you know, you anchor their emotions in a loss? Bruce,
Well, I guess my thought is, you know, in sort of the current climate, you know, the landlord, you know, could be concerned that the tenant will be looking to move on to, you know, maybe a different location.
Yep.
So, yeah, that would be, yeah, potentially a really big thing for them, particularly if they're losing clients left, right, and centre.
Yeah, make that picture of, look, if I don't survive this, you know, if I do have to pay rent, then you might be out of business. Yeah, and then you've got an empty premises. What's the chance of you being able to re-let this in the next sort of 6 months or so? You know, you want to sort of get them to feel the pain if the deal breaks down.
Yeah, exactly.
That almost has to be a general consensus across the country now.
Yeah, and I think that's in one shape. That does, if there's a plus side to this negotiation, then you can use that card. In normal negotiations, it's tough because they can turn around and say, fine, you don't want it. I've got 100 other people around the corner that want this. And they don't really have a negotiation. Yeah, unless you can negotiate loss to pain, you don't really have a negotiation stance. I think that's the key thing when he's talking to the ransom people. You know, their loss is they get nothing. So anything is better than nothing. So therefore, they're open to negotiation. Likewise, you know, for you, if it's a hostage, the worst case scenario is, you know, you've got dead people on your hands. Well, you don't want that. Therefore, you're more likely, you know, to give something. And it's just that balance between those two to get it down more towards what you want rather than what they want. And are you watching? There's an advert on the telly at the moment about compromising. Have you seen that one?
We don't have television at the moment.
That's good. That's a good answer. Just before the crisis, it was about these two guys treating their mother for Mother's Day. Wanted some, you know, amazing gesture. One wanted this, but they compromised. They both got mum tattoos on their arms, and it's just say that not compromising. I think that fitted quite well with this. So don't just sort of compromise and go halfway, because that was the black and brown shoes, wasn't it? You know, I want to wear black shoes. You want brown shoes. Black and a brown one.
Yes, yeah. Do you want to sort of come now or in 5 minutes type of thing? Yes, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So let's anchor it. You know, anchor it first. I did see. I wrote down there. Try and get them to make the first offer.
Yes, yeah, that was very interesting. So letting the other guy go first, because they could go surprisingly low or surprisingly high, and by doing that, we can almost establish a range. So when we see the range, it's really like with skills with anything. So we do take stock take, if you like, of what there is, and then where we need to be, and then we see the gap. And I suppose it's very, very similar situation with establishing range. So if someone goes very high or very low, then we benchmark that against what we thought was reasonable in the circumstances, and then it almost allows us to go away from the money and pivot on other things that might be important to them. So not necessarily monetary things, but it could be that we can start noticing other aspects of a deal that might be important to someone.
I think certainly, I've had a couple of company sale negotiations this year, and it's very difficult to start the negotiation without them putting a price on the table. So, and we've had a couple where they didn't put a price. They said, well, what do you want? And said, well, look, what do you want to offer? So we went, in the end, we sort of said, right, well, I'll set it at something high, because you don't want to set it low. And then they just disappeared from the table.
Oh, okay, I see.
It's like, well, if you're not prepared to negotiate, then it's almost, were you that interested? Like that's what we came to the conclusion that they weren't really interested.
Did you use odd numbers?
Did we? I think I did actually. I think I used I did a calculation of just under £1 million, I think, and it was well calculated.
985347, something like that, wasn't it?
It was a calculated number. But then I referred to it as this is a number. So yeah, we're looking around about £1 million. Because it was, I don't know, if you're opening with that figure, does it, that's a good question. If you're opening with a figure, does it need to be that calculated accurate figure?
Or is the perception, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is like perception of safety and everything else, isn't it? It's how it's perceived. It's the justification of it as well.
Yeah, and I suppose that's because this book is talking about let them make the first offer. So say they wanted £1 million and you went in and said, the best I can do is 437,332 quid. Then they go, oh, well, how did you? I wanted £1 million, and you've given me this specific number, and it makes them think. If you open with the specific number, then my worry with that was they then think, oh, it's such a specific number, that's the only number you're going to accept, and therefore they'll bail out the negotiation.
And again, all those examples are coming to me. And again, I'm not sure if it's from this book. Was he giving an example about playing poker? Or playing cards, and then everybody losing, money and sort of bidding against each other towards the end. Or again, I'm confusing it with something else that I listened on emotional intelligence. Was he not giving that example?
I remember the poker one.
Maybe not. So very similar when we get into those bidding wars almost. When it was one of the Harvard Business Reviews, I think. It's when you are in a situation, and I want to say it accurately, when you're in a situation when if thought about logically well in advance, you know there was no winners, you shouldn't have gone into that situation. But once you found yourself in a situation, so it could be a bidding war or that kind of thing, and people almost, the research shows that people almost go to the end, including the loss, rather than allow the logic and the logical thinking to prevail. It's quite incredible. I'll try and find that example to back it up. But it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Just try and Google that, actually. Obviously, it wasn't in this book, so I'm talking about things that aren't in this book. It's coming back, obviously.
You can link books together, I think. It's really well.
Absolutely.
So what was there? Yeah, and it did some good things. This whole thing of the person who's told there's 95% chance of receiving 10,000, or 100% chance of getting 9,500 will avoid taking the risk and take the 100% safe choice.
And what is a safe? Actually, that's interesting what you said. So
Yeah.
so what is a safe choice for someone?
So if you've got a 95% chance of receiving 10,000, 100% chance of getting 9,500, most people will take the 100% chance of getting 9,500. If it's the other way round, 95% chance of losing 10,000 or 100% chance of losing 9,500, the choice will be reversed. The people will take the 95% chance. So if it's a chance of losing, you'll take the if it's gaining, you'll take the 100%. If you're losing, you'll take the 95%. So the chance for loss incites more risk than the possibility of gain.
Yes, absolutely. Scares, absolutely. Yeah. We don't want. Yeah, absolutely.
So at the moment, if you look at the state of play of the economy, the chance of loss is very high, and therefore people will take more risk now than they would have done previously. And I'm seeing that with there's people that would never think about defrauding PAYE, national insurance, making claims for government grants and things like that, and now they're sort of almost talking like they quite happily take that risk. So it is that when that
it's stealing from us, isn't it?
Well, yeah,
doesn't make sense, because in the end of the, where's this money come from?
Well, it's like Jane was saying, there was a lady in Waitrose car park with her shopping, trying to put her kids in the car today, and somebody came up and stole her shopping.
Gosh.
In broad daylight.
Gosh.
So don't.
Where was that? Sainsbury, did you say? Or?
Waitrose.
Waitrose.
Oh, no, it was classy shopping. I wouldn't have stole cheap shopping.
Oh, it's really bad.
But you've got to think when we come into this, because you're tapping back into that reptilian that kicks in, rational thought goes out the window, and it becomes fight for survival. So in that basis, we do take more risk. If you want to take it to the extreme, you've got in the 9/11 in the tower, people were jumping out windows, to avoid the flames. You take it almost instantaneous sort of way out, rather than sort of trying to fight your way through the flames, that sort of thing. So once that brain kicks in, it's amazing what it will actually lead to do. So it said, anchor their emotion. So I think that's the key thing. You've got to anchor. If there's no emotion in a negotiation deal, then I think it's difficult to negotiate. If you've got nothing to lose, then why would I negotiate with you? So if your landlord has got nothing to lose, why is he going to negotiate with you? Go back to buying the car. If the car salesman feels that, I don't need to sell this car today, then you're not going to get a good deal. That's why we always say, you're going to buy a car, buy at the end of the quarter. End of the month or end of the quarter, because end of the quarter, they're generally on bonuses. They have to sell a number of cars. They've got more to lose. They might lose their bonus if they don't actually sell that next car. At the beginning of the month, I've got a whole month to actually sell cars, therefore I don't need to negotiate as hard. Okay, so you've got to trade in with a loss. Let them go first. So we talked about that. And then, do I got that next? Oh yeah, this was quite good. Was using the fair word. And I just thought that just really resonated with me. You know, we just want what's fair,
Mm.
because that really just puts it back. It almost says that you're being unfair without saying you're being unfair. So if you go back to the landlord and say, look, you know, we just want something that's fair. You know, he's paying rent
In
now,
the circumstances.
100% the rent now, and I'm laying off people, I'm doing things. You know, is that fair?
So it almost brings, interestingly, the concept of fairness, it almost changes depending on the lens that we apply, or how wide the lens is, or you know, how we apply it. You know, depending on what the situation around us is. So what seems to be fair today may appear completely outrageous, you know, tomorrow. I mean, what's fair in the time of war is will be different to other fairness for example. So I mean, it'd be interesting to it'd be interesting to see how fairness is defined depending on the context.
Yeah. Or
how it changes the meaning, if you like.
Yeah, and look, in my world, what could be fair could be different to in your world what could be fair. And that's why I quite like that. You know, we just want what's fair, because that sort of suggests that it's not fair for me, but I'm just asking you, do you think it's fair? You come and say, yeah, I think it's fair. Okay, well, at least I've got then something to negotiate against. So it makes them stay there where their starting point is. Yeah, so we've given you a fair offer. You know, fair seems like you're ready to provide the evidence that supports that. So, you know, you think it's fair. Okay, so what's the evidence behind it? You're pushing that back to them and saying, well, I don't think it's fair, but you obviously do. So give me some evidence why it's fair. So again, if you go back to the rent negotiation, think about how you could do that. If you've asked for that reduction, you know, we just want what's fair. And then he comes back and said, well, you know, I think 1,500 is sort of fair. You know, you could sort of say, well, you know, that's great. You know, what have you got that shows that is fair?
Well, yeah, it's a great question, isn't it?
Give it back onto them. So. Is that next chapter or oh yeah, so we'll stay on this one for the time being. So, you know, I think establish the range. I've got this on a later slide as well, because he does repeat himself a fair bit. Surprised with it. Let me just check that.
So we're on chapter 7 now, aren't we?
I think I've got that. Yeah. So yeah, it was when I was putting it together, it was repeated itself a couple of times. So there's a few points in that end of that chapter, but I know I've got them on a later slide, so we'll have to remember that and come back to it. Anything else on chapter 6?
Are we on chapter 6?
Where you were talking about fairness in the context of rent negotiation at the moment, I guess what crossed my mind is, you know, from the landlord's perspective, fair is paying the rent that you agreed to when you signed the lease.
Yep.
Whereas it's almost not a question of fairness. It's more coming back to the how am I supposed to do that?
Yeah, I think you did get a response from your landlord, didn't you? Have you got it to hand?
Us?
Yeah.
I don't think we've asked, have we?
No, we haven't asked.
So who asked then? Oh, no, it was Neil. Neil asked.
Oh, okay.
So because he's got the same landlord, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And he got a response, but it was quite a good response actually. which was, yeah, we appreciate your predicament. You know, obviously we've got a number of tenants and we have to do what's fair to all the tenants. So
Okay.
he was in effect using this back to say, yeah, okay, but I have to be fair. I can't treat you one way and everybody else a different way.
That's all right. We'll all have a rent reduction. Thanks.
Hopefully.
Well, it's definitely worth working together, you know, and certainly talking, because, you know, so one playing off the other one. But what I quite liked from the response was, yeah, I thought he was being fair. You know, he was saying, look, okay, if you tell me if there are hard conditions and you're having to do things, then let's talk about it. So
Okay.
no, you know, and it wasn't a yes, roll over, here's, you know, here's 3 months off.
I think what could be a point to consider nowadays is if premises are left empty for any period of time, you know, in other words, how easy is it gonna to rent it again in the current climate? So you'd really, I mean, you go back to basics. You know, you go back to accounting basics. You know, you take the lower off, and consider this, and also bring up that you're looking after that property at the same time. Because when you're on the you know, repair lease, for instance, you are meeting substantial ongoing costs with regard to maintenance of other properties, and I think that very often goes unnoticed. However, you can see that as an important point when properties go into disrepair.
Yeah.
Because it's just around where we are, you know, East Street, you know, right in the middle of town. And the number of properties that are derelict, you know, there, you know, it has been for many, many years, is incredible.
Yeah.
And yet, it's a town centre.
You've got to, you know, this is about bending their reality. You know, they've got
absolutely.
The reality is they've got a nice tenant, they don't have any work to do. Yeah, you need to bend that reality and say, actually, the reality is, if I'm out of business, there is nobody here. Nobody's going to re-rent this for the next 6 months, you know, 12 months. You're going to be left with the rates. You know, that's the last thing you want to do. Here's a way that we can avoid that. You know, so in these, you know, this is what we're really coming to the nub of this is, and it does go back to those voices. You know, that we start off with that the radio voice, but then we come to the teacher voice, and we're saying, look, guys, yeah, this is serious. Yeah, if we don't do this, yeah, then you have no rent. So what would you prefer? Okay, so and I suppose this comes nicely then on to chapter 7, this illusion of control. So, you know, with these sort of questions that, you know, we want them to feel that they're in control of it. And again, we're not leading them down that sort of yes. You know, asking these sort of key questions, which can actually have this sort of, you know, perception that they are actually dealing with this. So any of those questions stand out, or anything in the book that? Here we are. It was great standbys, and so these questions are on page 154.
It's a nice example that he gave of it was a drug dealer, wasn't it, who said, "How do I know she's all right?" Which just flipped it around quite nicely.
Where was that? Do you know what page that was?
I remember that from listening to it, so I haven't got a page number, I'm afraid.
A minute number.
You've only got to find that part of it.
But the point was that rather than asking for something, you know, saying, right, I need proof she's all right, it was posed as a question, and then it became the hostage taker's problem to solve. And so then rather than, you know, them feeling that they'd conceded something by, you know, providing proof that the hostage was okay, it was their suggestion that they put the hostage on the phone.
Yeah, no, I think that's, yeah, you're putting back, you know, the how and what, because he does say about the why question, doesn't he? Don't use the why question. But the how and what is again, it's another NLP technique. So, you know, how is a very open, it gets people thinking mindset. What can be challenging, so it can be it's a bit harder than how. You know, so how can we achieve this? What are you going to do to achieve this? So slightly different variations in strength on those two questions.
And almost on the back of that, it gives us and creates the extra time, and that extra time, during that extra time that we've created by those questions, we can reevaluate the base for calculations, and we can then start discussing all those substantive issues and begin to negotiate. So that could be quite a good strategy, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, avoid closed questions. You know, result in yes, unless you want the no or yes. Yeah, don't ask the question. Start with why, unless you want your counterpart to defend a goal that serves you. Why is always an accusation in any language. So that was. It does say that there's the one time you can use the why question.
I'm not sure I follow this why argument, to be fair. In my mind, a question of why is quite a good and curious and open question. But maybe not. Maybe that's not the case. But in my mind, being curious is what we should be.
So why did you wear that jumper today? That was the question.
Oh, you are asking me.
So why did you wear that jumper today?
I didn't give it much thought.
Right, but if you notice how your mental process went there, you had to justify something, didn't you? You had
Indeed.
to justify why you wore it. And you came up with an answer.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
You know, that actually suggests that, you know, it's a casual jumper that, you know, you threw on. You might have been the only jumper you've got, but you felt obliged to
provide. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Defend your decision for wearing the jumper. Yeah. Now you could have taken that question from me as an accusation. You know, why did you wear that? You know, in a thing, or, you know, why did you wear that? Because it's great. You know, it takes you to places that can be quite difficult.
I see. Yeah. Okay. No, I think that's an interesting one. Okay, of course, because you don't want to alienate. Of course, no, you're absolutely right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but he does come on to that a bit later on that one, which was quite good. So, cool. How are we doing for time? What are we? We're half five. We're half four already. Half four, half five.
Half five.
So, doesn't time fly when you're having fun? So chapter 8, guarantee execution. What did I come up with this? Oh, so yeah, so this was the 73855. So again, this is another NLP thing. You know, words account for 7% of communication, tonality 38%, body language. If you're doing this on the phone, yeah, then you're missing out on 55% body language. So the ratio words to tone is massive. Okay, 7 to 45. I don't know what that is as a percentage. So about 20%. So 80% of communication is tonality when it's on the phone. So this is why, you know, go back to those three voices, you know, is so important to have that, because that's what they're listening, that's what they're engaging as to your reaction. You know, am I up against somebody who's attacking me? In which case that pitch is going to be high. Are they actually caring and supporting me? Which is why it's going to be a low pace communication style. So, what we've got, the rule of three. So where did I pick that up from?
A rule of three. What was the rule? I can't remember it. Bruce, do you remember it?
Pardon?
The rule of three.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
What was it?
by going through 3 times, in different ways, each time you go through it, it really sinks in. They truly, they're fully on board with it now. If you just do it once, they might be partially on board. If you do it twice, they're almost there. 3 times, it's absolutely definite. They've agreed. There's no doubt about that. They're not going to change their mind now.
Yeah.
What was it about black swans? Oh no, that's further down. Yes, fine. Okay,
Black
fine.
swans is,
No, yes, yeah, that's further down.
Save that one to later, because that's an interest. So rule of three, the Pinocchio effect. Everybody.
Oh yes, it was Malhotra, wasn't it? Professor Malhotra, isn't it? He's found that and I started thinking about it because oftentimes I say a lot of things, and sometimes it's like there's a lot of thoughts coming to my head. I'm thinking, but am I lying? I'm not lying. So it's just got me to think whether that may not always be the case. But of course, in here, I mean, I think it was Professor Deepak, wasn't he? Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. So those people tend to use more words than those who tell the truth, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. And they also use more third-person pronouns.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's distancing, isn't it? I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're creating the length, the depth and the breadth and that sort of thing. Maybe.
Yeah, because I think it was quite good. It was the bank robber one, wasn't it, where he was using those pronouns because he wasn't the one in charge. So he was working out who's in charge here, and he was using words that meant that he was referring to how dangerous the others were and how little influence he had on them, and they were lies. Because he was sort of, almost projecting a fictitious thing out there that wasn't, but I think, part of that for me came back to the profile. So if you remember on disc profiling, our extrovert people are D's and our I's, and our introverted people are C's and S's. So extrovert people tend to speak before they think. So their way of verbalizing is they talk a lot because they're trying to get sense of what they say. Yeah. C's and S's are more introverted, more thoughtful, so they think before they speak. So when a CS speaks, it's generally fairly concise, and factual, and therefore truthful.
And that's much better received as well. Yeah. Because majority can receive that better.
Yeah. Whereas D's and I's go into verbal, talk a lot because they're trying to process that knowledge, and therefore you shouldn't always take what they say as being truthful there and then. Might be truthful, as you said. Sometimes you do that and there is truth in there. But a lot of it is about how I get to it rather than accepting the first thing that I say as being the truth. And I do find this where you've got D&I leaders where they sort of say what's on their mind, and then people go, "Oh, right, well, you're the boss, therefore I'll do that." and because no one's actually challenged them, they go, all right, then if you think it's right, then go and do it. And then it doesn't work. And they'll say, well, you told me to do this, it didn't work. And they'll say, well, you know, it was only an idea. And no one challenged me. You know, so there's an element of profiling within that.
Indeed.
And what did you think of the Chris discount then? Did you use that one on your car, Andy?
No, I didn't. Maybe I should. I did. Yeah, I think I probably. That's. I guess that sort of thing probably doesn't come very naturally to me. So it would have felt a bit forced. But I did use some of the other similar techniques in that area, right? You know, trying to build a rapport and all that kind of thing. So there was an element of that, but I didn't go all out.
Yeah, no, I want to get a stage where I can use that one. I just, you know, what's the my name's Kevin. What's the Kevin discount? And see what happens. You know, it's I just loved its simplicity. You know, because you almost you can feel them obliged to give you a discount just because you've asked it that way.
Yeah, I like the humour, sort of fun behind it.
Yeah.
You can see how it would work, you know, in some situations.
Let me know what how it went down. So then we had the types of negotiator. Was that on this one? Yeah, so it was bargaining hard. So I've got to think, yeah, so let's go. So what was this thing? Oh, there we go. Yeah, so we are. Yeah, so sorry, this is chapter 9, bargain hard. I think I might have taken this out. Oops.
Oh yes, yeah. I was wondering the Deepak Malhotra, because he's the guy that's doing a lot of things on this competitive arousal thing, isn't it? On motivation and behavior. Yes, yeah. That's why. Okay, fine. Now, very interesting person.
Probably
Yes.
come across him elsewhere. So I think he's the one that came up with the Black Swan as well. I think Black Swan was in one of his books. So yeah, so I think I've got these slides out of kilter here, so I can't put it back on this way.
Yeah, I lost your slides.
Oh, hang on.
Who is Tiger 62?
Oh, I'm not going to give his real name away.
Who is Tiger 62? Oh, we know it's a he.
But you know it's he, yeah.
Okay. Tiger 62 is not saying anything, is he?
No, I've silenced him.
Ah.
Let me put that back up. Let's go back to share screen.
You know, I can't see that. Ah, yeah.
Sorry, I just put the slides back in order. I'd got them slightly out of kilt. So, excuse me. Yeah, bargain.
It's not a dry cough by any chance, Kevin, is it?
It's because I've done 3 webinars today. I haven't stopped talking. If it is, you can't contaminate through Zoom.
It's not persistent.
No, it's not persistent. It's just talking too much. Yeah, so this was sort of the end of the last chapter and beginning of chapter 9. I put it into one place. So, which was, you know, I just love some of these quotes. You know, I'm sorry that doesn't work for me. You know, again, go back to the rent negotiation. You know, if they come back and say, look, I'm just sorry that doesn't work for me. And then that's when you leave the pauses, that's when you leave the gap, because then they feel obliged to fill that gap. So what would work for you, you know? So what else would, you know, would you be able to offer to make that a good price for me? You know, again, rent negotiation, you know, how am I supposed to do that? You know, with all what's going on, how am I supposed to do that? So I thought those were just great lines. You almost want them written down and be able to pull them out your hat if you're not negotiating on a regular basis.
You're absolutely right. It's practicing those things, isn't it? Because we can be discussing it what we like. It's almost what we may need after that is a session on implementing it, or being very aware of how we do things from now on, and again almost taking note and reflecting on the things and how we use these things and how they serve us or not serve us,
yeah.
and be quite critical, you know, and then have another discussion almost, and then a reflection on the reflection. Which potentially could result in a sort of much better learning, because you almost do the you learn everything in bits and pieces, and then you keep coming back to it, which is quite a good way of learning.
This is quite, if you do, because a lot of our communication in our businesses is email. So, you know, the first stage would be to actually build some of these into the email, because you've got time to reflect and you can get the book, you can look. So a lot of that's why I said earlier, the one about have you given up on this project? You know, that was good, because I'm actually composing the email to send out to people. They practice through emails to start with, okay, and then you will get negotiation situations where you'll finish them and go, oh, do you know what, I should have said that. You know, that would have been a great line to put in there. And I think that's just part of your learning process, is awareness first, and then as you move on, you'll come up with, you know, you'll actually catch yourself and somehow
and being almost honest with oneself, and that's not an easy part.
Yeah.
Finding that true honesty, because oftentimes we either criticize ourselves so much that one can, you know, feel almost down, and I very often do that. So I look at things so critically that it almost makes me angry, if you like. Or the other end of the spectrum is of not wanting to notice these things. So having that objective mind around you that you're not going to be upset with, and at the same time will help you understand. Well, that's where the role of the coach is, isn't it, I guess?
That's it. It's sort of feeding this back, being aware.
It's
and you know, the key is you know, have it in your mind and then be thinking about it, and then it will come. You'll start to do it. Obviously, the more you are in situations of negotiation, the better. You know, if you only do one negotiation a year, it's very difficult to build the skills up to do it properly. So just negotiate everything now. When you go to the shops, you know,
now we have to.
Go to the petrol pump and they say it's, you know, £57.36. Sorry, that doesn't work for me. You know, how much do
Good
that?
luck with that.
We said we're not gonna. I was gonna make a joke, but of course I'm not, because it's being recorded now, isn't it?
It is.
So we have to really keep politically correct.
Yeah, your PC side of things. But the types of negotiator. What were your thoughts? I think we had 3 in there, didn't we?
Which one was it?
3. That was page 193.
193. It's like Honey Mumford, isn't it? A little bit. It's like with those learning styles, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's
very similar.
You know, we use mix profiling. So you've got your
Johari's,
you know, so you know, the analyst is the C, the accommodator is generally the sort of the S, and the assertive is the D. I don't know why they haven't got a high I on there as well, but probably a mixture of those three. So, you know, again, you know who you are. You know, so if you are an analyst, you know, and you're negotiating with an assertive person, you know, you've got to see the strengths and weaknesses of each party. You know, and back to the assertive, silence is the opportunity to speak. Well, we've just said, you know, we don't want that in. You know, the accommodator silence can be seen as aggression. You know, they can feel quite, you know, worried that nothing's being said. You know, if you've got an analyst, you need to give them time to think. So, but yeah, so I think, you know, that's very much in line, I think, with the work we do on disc profiling as well. So, yeah, if you haven't done your disc profile, then I think that's good.
A very useful exercise.
Do that.
I would say it's useful to almost read. It goes back to this reflection on reflection. It's good to do it at the beginning of the process, and then at some. So you've got the baseline, and then see how that changes, say within 6 months or even a year, whether, you know, things have changed or evolved, or certain things. Because well, they say, well, we don't change, but we do change, and we do change significantly when we want to change.
Yeah.
And you know, when one has a coach, that means that one wants to better themselves, which means that in order to better oneself, one has to change. Yeah. So it'd be good to actually see the difference. Yeah. Actually, yeah.
That mindset, you know, you're either reading this stuff and you're learning it and putting it into practice, or you're not. You just carry on doing the same old thing all the time. Yeah.
And that is the what was it? Sorry, that is the problem with majority of trainings that we put employees on. They finish on the high, very, very, very motivated.
Yeah.
And then the deflation comes in over a space or a week or 2 weeks, and then everything's, you know, back to normal.
Yeah.
So business as usual 2-3 weeks down the line. So it's having that training which is circular and cross-referencing, you know, and repeated constantly and in many different forms. That's when it becomes effective.
Yeah, you got to, you know, it goes back to be, do, have.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to know what you want to have, who do I need to be, so I need to learn this stuff, and then I've got to do it. I've got to do something about it. Just having the knowledge and not doing it, you know, means you're sort of, you know, you're intelligent sloth.
Well, we all know that we have to exercise, eat healthily, don't do this, don't do that, and you know, it's just enough to look outside.
Yep. So the Ackerman model, what's
Ackerman, yes, yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
I think there was that in this chapter. Yeah, prepare an Ackerman plan before you head into the weeds of bargaining. So, you know, so this was that sort of summary of the last sort of few chapters, which was, you know, set your range of prices, you know. So again, you've got to understand where you are. You know, what's the lowest you're prepared to pay? What's the highest you're prepared to pay? You know, you can't, when you're going into these things, you can't, when you get that chance to make a call, you've got to make it. You can't then go, oh, you know what, I need to think about this. You have to go into that negotiation really knowing, you know, sort of where you're willing to accept, and know when to push and when to stop. Because if you keep pushing, you just end up pissing people off. And that's why I quite like that, the plan offers, you know, so the bias sort of starts with 65% of what he's prepared to pay, and then builds up to 100% of what he's prepared to pay.
It's almost like a dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
almost like after reading this book, you want to go out to Morocco and go to one of the bazaars, practice in Morocco, you know, with stupid, you know, trinkets, and just see how you can actually do it. and hone your skills in the bazaars of Morocco.
Mm. No, absolutely, you're absolutely right. You know, is the safety is the same with coaching, isn't it? Is the safety of the safe environment?
Yeah. Where, you know, doesn't matter. It's, you know, but skills that you look, because these guys have trained in this for years. Yeah, it's been handed down generation to generation, and therefore, if you can go up against those guys and come away, then you're laughing. So yeah. So again, extreme anchors. So, you know, if you're going to go, I mean, in a way, it's a little bit contra to the 65 and the 135 in number 2, but it's almost sort of setting it so extreme that becomes the, I think he said the anchor, didn't he? Everything then is related to that price. So if you set the price, it's related to it, therefore it's more likely to end up closer to your anchor than if you don't set the price. Okay, so I think that I really like that sort of. So if you are going to go to the rent, your negotiations, you know, go in and set the anchor. You know, the anchor is nothing. The anchor is, you know, 10%.
And dilapidated property.
Yeah.
So it's actually a minus. You could almost bring it to expense rather than an investment.
Yeah.
From that. Yeah, absolutely. Because it becomes, you know, that property can become a liability.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
it's like with a lot of assets that
you use the odd numbers. So that's when you make the numbers seem really calculated, that a lot of thought's gone into it. You know, because if you end up with, you know, £1,829.32p, you know, in their brain they have to go, well, how did you just come up with 32p?
What planet is he on?
So yeah, so the extreme anchor, you know, you think I haven't done my homework. What did I put that in for? I haven't done my homework. Yeah, I think that's why you don't give anchors, you know, because, you know, you might feel insulted. You know, this was, yeah, that's right. So this is the quote. I should put that in quotes. You need to sort of set the scene when you do the anchor. So it's almost like, look, I'm almost embarrassed to tell you that I want £1 million. You know, I'm always embarrassed to say, look, I can't pay my rent next month. You know, you're going to be insulted, you know, if, you know, I ask for a rent reduction. Again, you're playing that empathy card. You're playing it from their point of view. The question that they will actually be thinking, you know, is the one that you lead with. Yeah. So if they are going to feel insulted by it, say, look, I think you might be feeling insulted by this, because it's just showing that connection you've got with that other party. It says, yeah, if I was in your shoes, yeah, I'd be upset with this offer. But this is where we are. Okay, so I thought that was another good aspect of the anchoring. So, do you want to tell me what the black swan is? Who's going to lead with telling us what the black swan
is? Since nobody's spoken up, unless that was meant to be one of those long silences, it's basically a piece of undisclosed information that can be a bit of a game changer.
Yeah. Yep. So the unknown unknowns, I think he put it quite nicely. So what's not being said? What did I say there? So yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, it was Nassim Nicholas Taleb, Fooled by Randomness. I'm just reading another good book at the moment, Thinking Fast and Slow, and it's all about how
very good.
the brain works, and he refers to this in there as well, that the brain is fooled by the brain is designed to see patterns in the world. That's what it looks for. It looks for certainty, even when there isn't certainty. So a lot of the mind tricks you see, he's got one where there's two lines and you think they're the same length, or they think they're different lengths but the same length. So your mind is looking for patterns, and it's easily convinced that there is one when there isn't one. Okay, so a lot of what's going on with the coronavirus and the stresses and strains that are going on here is a constant need for there must be a reason for this. There must be a pattern for this, and when we don't find it, then we'll actually put something in its place, that isn't really right. So the black swan was, people didn't think there was a black swan, and then there was a black swan which shattered the world view. So Pearl Harbor, the rise of the internet, and coronavirus, you could put that as a black swan. We didn't think that a virus would have a global impact. But yet here it is. This is a black swan in space.
Kevin, can I share? And I'll be very happy if you say no to that. There is a very interesting video of Nicholas Taleb about the black swan. So if someone's got a spare minute, I'm quite happy to share. I mean, it's on YouTube available. So if you want me, I can put it in our chat.
Don't put it in chat, because
okay.
When I did today, I had all this chat with all these numbers and useful information.
It makes sense, did it? Mm.
And I closed the Zoom thing down. I lost all the chat.
Same happened to me. I wanted to actually go back to.
I can't go back to it and find the chat again. So maybe this video I might be able to. But best thing to do, you email it to me, Paul.
Yes.
I'll email it out to you.
And see if it's relevant, first of all. Yes. Yeah.
That'd be good.
Sure.
So with this, we've got sort of what it calls
I'll send it to you.
3 types of leverage. So we're at page 220 now. So we've got this positive leverage. So I've got something they want. We've got negative leverage. They're worried about losing something. And then normative, when you analyze other parts' stance and use it to advance your position. So if we're looking at our situation at the moment, we want to be playing the negative leverage card. Okay, so we want to be playing that. You put it in chat, have you?
Just to you.
Okay, let me copy that out.
Because I don't want to forget that.
Could you just email it to me?
Yeah.
Otherwise, I've got to come out of this presentation.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay.
You just email it to me, and I'll put it out. But if the others want to pick it up, then please do. So at the moment, we can play that negative leverage card, that they're something that they might lose, which is us as a tenant. If we can play the positive leverage one. So that means that we've got something they want. And what was anybody got some thoughts on the normative leverage while I read the paragraph?
It's basically summed up by it says in the book, nobody wants to look like a hypocrite.
Right.
So it's resting on moral grounds, isn't it? It just goes back to the NLP thing, isn't it? Yes, yeah.
Yes, and it's inconsistencies between what somebody has said and what they're doing.
Right.
Moral. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have to go back and reread that one. It's know their religion. So it goes back to just finding that underlying, why they, if they're trying to negotiate with you, why are they trying to negotiate? What is at the heart of what they want? If you remember back to our sales process, trust, need, help, hurry. The whole point of the need exercise is to really understand what their need is. They might say this is what I need, but is that what they really need? Do we need to dig deeper and actually try and find out what that actually is? Cool. So I think that was all the bits that I had. Any other areas that you stood out for you guys that is worth sharing?
I think what I really enjoyed today, before we got onto the chat, is a 12-minute video on YouTube by Chris Voss, and him talking about the book, about the process, and summarizing his journey. And I think that's actually quite nice to to be face to face with him, if you like. Yeah,
he's got some good video content, in short videos and
I only saw one.
There. Unfortunately, he was the speaker at our conference that Bruce and Andy were coming along to it in Cardiff.
That's cancelled now, is it? No.
Today it's been cancelled.
Oh, okay.
So they're just deciding whether to postpone it till September, which I'm doubtful whether they're going to be able to do it in September.
Because if we postpone everything, we're going to have really busy winter, don't we?
I would say it's likely to be postponed until next year. Hopefully we can get Chris back at that for next year, because he was the one I was really looking forward to listening to speak. But the other good news for next year, we've actually got Seth Godin speaking. So if you want to find out a bit more about him, then it's definitely worth looking into that. He's an amazing character and got a lot of really interesting stuff to think about. So and it's going to be really plumb in where we're going to be as a global business economy in 12 months time. That'll be a good one. So we're just finding out at the moment whether people want to carry forward their what they've paid to next year, or they want refunds or whatever. So
that money next year, how much it's going to be worth, do you think?
It'll be more next year than this year. So I would say it's probably going to be 50% more expensive tickets next year than this year. So
do you think so?
I think so, yeah. Because Simon's Seth Godin he will get a massive following from outside of the Action Coach community. Massive.
I'm just looking him up actually. Yeah,
he's got a huge. His following is he's probably one of the biggest that will bigger than Clive Woodward and things like that. So people will come to see him speak just for that. But I don't know at the moment. I don't know. So we'll get an email out to everybody. But we'll cancel the hotel, guys, for you, and then we'll have a chat about what we want to do. So, cool, good. Well, I think we're pretty much. I can't believe we've actually got till bang on time. So that's perfectly weighted slides there.
Next thing we need to learn is how to virtually, have those dinners. and we just get some takeaways.
Well, on Friday one we had the pizzas here, and we did.
Okay.
And
good.
Chris actually was very kind. He because I redid the video, the webinar this morning. And he arranged for Domino's Pizza to deliver pizza for me.
Oh, how nice!
So I think we could do that. I could get everyone's address. Everyone has a pizza arrive at the same time.
Yeah.
We can sit and eat. But
Gosh.
hopefully it won't come to that for too long anyway. We'll get through it.
Mm.
Yeah, a new service to suggest to Domino's simultaneous pizza delivery.
Yeah.
Mm.
So well, if they can't do it, there's a business for you to
Absolutely.
Zoom and eat. So cool. So next book is Infinite Game, Simon Sinek.
Great.
He's written some fabulous books. So he's got loads of YouTube content. You go and see pretty much everything that he talks about in the book. If you want the video as opposed to the audio or the
When are we meeting?
So our next meeting, that's a very good point, is the planned is the 22nd of June for the book club and
Okay,
22nd
22nd
of June for the dinner. Now, obviously, those will be, we'll probably webinar anyway. The book club, certainly.
22nd of June.
We'll have to see if we're able to get together again.
At 4 p.m.
So that'll be 4 p.m. on.
I'm just putting it in the calendar, so. And Jade will send the invoice. Okay, book club.
We'll get that
Thank you.
out for. So, and then the upcoming workshops, we're going to, at the moment, I'm not sure if I'm going to be running the workshop as they are, mainly because obviously people are sort of more still in a bit of sort of crisis mode. So if they are going to be held on those dates, they will be quite specific around the topic of the day. So, how do we market in a crisis, sales in a crisis, time in a crisis, finance in a crisis? So they'll be very specific to those areas. So, if anybody wants to come to those, then please do let Jane know and book on when you are ready to. But we'll definitely be continue to hold them. Certainly for the next 2-3 months, they will be all virtual. So
Well, that's what they reckon it takes about 3 months to form a habit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So when people stop smoking, it's usually the 3 months period that they need to form another habit.
Okay.
So
I don't mind because I can actually sort of go and find a nice cheap villa in Spain, and I can go and do my webinars in Spain. I can finish them off and then go and dive in the pool. So. But look, it's been great having you. Thanks very much for giving your time. Appreciate there's lots going on, and keep safe, and we'll see you at the next one.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Take care, guys.
It was good to see you, Andy and Bruce as well.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Thanks, Kevin.
And the elusive Tiger 62.
Yeah. Cool. Cheers, guys. I will stop the recording and. Oh. Somehow switch this off. I still haven't worked out how to switch this off. There we go.
I think it's still recording.
See you later, guys.
Okay.
Bye.